Article 1, yeah?
What?
Let's read Article
You just
1.
just that and 10.
Article 10.
You don't even have to do that one.
Article
That and 10.
10.
The land of Ireland belongs to citizens.
1st of January, the 99th anniversary of the meeting of the first Dáil Éireann. I just want to say a little bit about the house because we have such a large crowd that we won't be able to do a tour. There's too many people, but we like to see them the round room, where the first Dáil met on this day 99 years ago. This room you're in, the Oak Room, was also a meeting place for the Dáil. As you know, in 1919, the Dáil was suppressed by the British government in the autumn of that year and had to go underground and met in various places in Dublin and other places. But in
Where is that?
1921, in July, the truce between the British forces and the Irish Republican Army was signed in this building here in the Mansion House. And the Dáil was then able to meet openly, and it met it met in this place here. Sorry about that. It met here in the round room, but it also met in this room where we're standing in the summer of 1921. During the preparations for negotiations, the Dáil met several times here in the Oak Room, so it's quite fitting that we're here. So when you do your ceremony, we can show you that in the round room. So enjoy your day, for being welcome.
Can I thank the Lord Mayor for inviting us all in here today. It's our 99th anniversary of the Sovereign Republic of Éire, the Sovereign Dáil Éireann Government and the Sovereign Dáil Éireann Courts and the War of Independence as a defence force. And I would like to point out it's the first time that the public have been invited in to see where the state was founded, the Sovereign Republic of Éire and the Sovereign Dáil Éireann Government. And that is the only, you'll see it on the photograph out there, the Lord Mayor will show us, that is the only legal, valid and bona fide government that can sit in the European Parliament and use the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood's tricolour flag and their sovereign seal of Dáil Éireann. And aren't they wonderful people? 99 years ago foresaw all this, and we can do 10,000 years of our sovereignty, we've done it, and also the European flag. John, you might have you one of those things, the European flags? You'll see the harps, it's all about the harps, and it's all about the stars. They are not, to the uninitiated, they're stars, but they're actually harp signs, and they're very important, because in Europe, you're talking about the first four strings of the harp are earth, air, fire, and water. And the fifth one on the Europeans, what they call stars, they're the stars. You see the stars there. The 5 points. The 5 points are those. You see the 5 points? That's earth, air, fire, and water. And the fifth is that Europe has sovereignty in Europe, and the people in Europe are sovereign citizens. And that was carried from the Middle East right across to Europe and North Africa to Hibernia, which is Ireland. And we still have that tradition. And we're one of the few countries who knows all about the European and all about our sovereignty. It's all about sovereignty. Royalty is different. The British government doesn't have sovereignty. It has a royal government, royal courts of justice and a crown force. Sovereignty, it comes from God. And I'll show you the sovereign seals. That's the sunship and the moonship. And you put the two together and you see the harp. That's the fellows of the wheel, how man invented the wheel. Oh, everything on the harp. No man or woman understands God, but everybody understands the covenant, which is the harp. And the covenant is all the information knowledge for his planet Earth and our civilization. And those three wise men that you see following the star, they're Homo sapiens. That's a childish version. And in Rome, the Roman Empire, of course, they hated the Celtic people. And they changed to Roman Catholic religion. And every child is born with original sin. You follow the Roman Catholic system, you become to heaven. But that's only controlling people. Whereas ours are every child is born, the first four strings are earth, air, fire, and water. Every child has a right to earth, air, fire, and water. And the fifth is that child is sovereign. and has all the assets of the state, education, and everything else. And that predates all this Roman. And those three wise men are Homo sapiens following that covenant of Anno Domini of the year. And on the Ark of the Covenant, they're not angels. That was a Roman invention, to put angels on it. They're 2 5-stringed harps. You see them there. And when I stand with the harps at either hand, my left hand and my right hand, which I did, you're the sovereign. And down you look at the four courts, and in 1923, the Free State and the Free State judges, they desecrated that. They turned it the other way around. That is what this is. That's what look. You do all those mathematics, all science, all technology today comes from that. Your measuring tape, your plumb line, your straight edge. There's the golden thread, and everything on that. And you turn that. Look, they can be turned. See the way they go. And that's how. And when you stand, all the old days when people were initiated into the IRB and into the Fenian Brotherhood, you stood with the harps, and you were the centre. You were the sovereign. Whereas the crown is man-made. But that's not man-made, that comes from God. And that's what's very important. That's all we do is teach people, about our sovereignty and where it comes from. And it's very important in Europe. It's very important in Europe that here we have 10,000 years. Look, and we have the sovereignty, and we know where the sovereignty is. And we know that our ancestors, your ancestors, carried that from the Middle East right across through Europe and North Africa. And that's not taught. It should be taught. Every child should be taught that and where you come from. And that's only the start of it. How man weaved his cloth, the string, latitude and longitude, geometry, geography, mathematics, science, all come from that. There's the sun ship and the moon ship. That's how you build your ship. Look, the sun ship carrying it. That's how man discovered. Look, and they tied the string, and they found the world was globular and circular. I'll show you that if I have it. I found that. Where is the? I'm looking for this. You saw that painting was sold. It is Salvator Mundi, the Saviour of the world. That is the harp sign. You see, the Pope today still gives that harp sign. The Archbishop of Westminster gives that harp sign. They're the harp signs, and I just showed you how you do it. You put the two together, sun box, sound box, the wheel, turn it upside down, how the pyramids of Egypt were built. All mathematics, all science, all astronomy. And he has the globe in his hand. That's the first time they discovered, and I showed you how they did it. Tied the string, go back to Copernicus, Galileo, Ptolemy. They tied the string there on the eye. That's the eye. And they followed the sun round. The sun ship sits up in that. The arc of the sky. It went down underneath. They didn't know where the sun went to. And when it came up the other side, well, you have your maps. You have your compass. You have your wheel. And when they turned the string like that, where the strings meet, you had latitude and longitude. All that information is from the harp. And we have it as our national emblem. And it's not been taught. It should be taught to every child to know how man learned to write, how man learned to count, the abacus. Everywhere you turn it, crescent moon, everything. The sun box, the sound box, the 21st of December, the 21st of June. All that knowledge on that. Turning it latitude, longitude. All the Celtic designs, they're all on that. You see them there? And in Lochgar, which is the oldest stone circle we have, you have the harp sign. And Cromwell sent his troops, camped his troops there, and his son-in-law, Ireton. He defaced all the stones. All those were on the stones. All what we're talking about, all those signs were on those stones. And they defaced them all. The harp stone is still there. And they're in line to the Galties. And Carrigal is the other side of the lake. There's two stone circles. And you go back from Carrigal to that harp stone where the stone sits on. And that's what you see, the two stone circles up in Carrigal going back to the harp stone. And the Ranacran Dove stone is where they taught all that. And the Ogham is the first structured language of mankind, and the second is hieroglyphics. Look, that's your golden thread. And when you put the two strings together and they divided that, that's your measuring tape, your plumb line, your straight edge. So children should know where all that comes from. And there's the sovereign Dáil Éireann government here on the 21st of January. You saw it outside the door, there it is there, a better one of it. That's the only legal, valid and bona fide government that we have. It's by the will and wish of all the people of the 32 counties, from GHQ Vaughan's Hotel, 29 Parnell Square. And when the Queen came, she laid the wreath in the garden of remembrance. That took 10 years. But she doesn't have sovereignty. Britain has a royal government, royal courts of justice and a crown force. 1155, when Pope Adrian IV illegally and fraudulently gave Hibernia to Henry II to build his empire. That caused the 100 Years' War. And when Henry VIII, he fell out with Pope, and that still is going on. As we said, all sovereignty comes from God. And Britain doesn't have a sovereignty. It has a royal government, royal courts of justice and a crown force. And that's why General de Gaulle wouldn't allow them into Europe. And this is why we have Brexit at the moment. We put in our bill for 200 billion plus, because on the 6th, all the institutions of the state were up and working here on the 21st of January 1919. And the money they collected by our organisation, Friends of Irish Freedom. And there's marvellous books out that you can read today, Money for Ireland by Francis Carl. And the other one is, I forgot the other one. But anyway, they're all there for anyone to read it. But every child should know where all that comes from and where you come from. And what those people, that's what they gave their lives. They carried 8 strings IV on their buttons, Irish volunteers, to put up that sovereign seal here. And that's the dining room in there. And that's where the Supreme Council met. First of all, they met in Vaughan's Hotel in the morning. And all that was ratified then by the sovereign Dáil Éireann government. It's not the Dáil, it's the sovereign Dáil Éireann government. On the 21st of January then, King George V, he declared Dáil Éireann to be an illegal assembly. And he imposed the British apartheid system for the 26 and 6 counties of Ireland as an Orange Free State and a provisional government. Britain had no money then, after the Great War. So what they did was they put down national debt down in Ireland to pay for the Free State and the Free State government of the 26 and 6 counties of Ireland. And that's the problem we have today. And on the 16th of March, Queen Elizabeth, she gave royal assent to Theresa May under the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, the coat of arms. And you see it, England, Ireland and Scotland. And you see our sovereign seal up in the coat of arms of the Crown of England. What is the sovereign seal of Dáil Éireann doing up in her coat of arms? And people might ask. And the point is that Theresa May, on the 29th of March, she wrote to Donald Tusk, and she took the United Kingdom, Ireland and Great Britain under that of the coat of arms. She took England, Scotland and Ireland out of the European Union. And no one talks about it. We are out of the Europe, but we have our own sovereign government. By the will and wish, is the only legal, valid and bone. We have 5 governments, as I say, we have 5 constitutions. We've only one sovereign constitution that took all the land back from the landlords, and Harry will read that in a moment, at the beginning of it. And that's the legal, valid and bona fide government. There'll be no borders here. We have to go back to that sovereign government, and the rest of here has to recognise where we come from. That's why this house is this is the most important house in the country. This in Vaughan's Hotel, where it was the headquarters. This is where it all happened. And I think it's time that people were told what happened and given it. And I would like to thank the Lord Mayor. You know, it's great to be just the first time in 99 years that people have been invited in here to see where our state was founded. Sure, in any other country. If you don't, this is our Independence Day. It took 99 years, and the Senate last year voted unanimously that the 21st of January would be our Independence Day. The Dáil hasn't done it yet, but we're trying to get them to do it. But this is, and every country in the world, you ask America when's their independence, when is Canada, Australia, and it took 99 years to say it. This is our you have to have all this in Europe, because General de Gaulle wouldn't allow Britain in. They have a royal government, royal courts of justice. That is not sovereignty. Sovereignty comes from God. And you can see where Henry VIII and the Pope and all, the Pope was his vicar on earth and all that, and he fell out with all that. And that all came out. I better hurry on, and We need,
It's way after 12 now.
what?
It's way after 12.
Right. With the proclamation, and I need to. Harry, are you ready? Harry, very good. You want to go up there and read? And you notice I hold the tricolour flag when we read, that's our proclamation. And you notice that because it's still owned by the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood, we put that up in the GPO in 1916. And Dermot Lynch took it down and brought it up to Vaughan's Hotel. And it was ratified here on the 21st of January by the Sovereign Dáil Éireann government. No, Harry, you read the proclamation. No, sorry, I mean two Harrys. Harry, read the no, and you're reading you're not reading it.
We have a small copy of it here.
No, you're reading this.
Okay, but you read the proclamation. Yeah.
You read the proclamation, and you're reading that. Just the front page and Article 10. With the proclamation first. Off you go.
Public Nahiran, Provisional Government of the Irish Republic to the people of Ireland, Irish men and Irish women, in the name of God and of the dead generations from which she receives her old traditions of nationhood, Ireland, through us, summons her children to her flag and strikes for her freedom. Having organised and trained her manhood through her secret revolutionary organisations, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, and through her open military organisations, the Irish Volunteers and the Irish Citizens' Army, having patiently perfected her discipline, having resolutely waited for the right moment to reveal itself, she now seizes that moment and, supported by her exiled children in America and by gallant allies in Europe, but relying in the first on her own strength, she strikes in full confidence of victory. We declare the right of the people of Ireland to the ownership of Ireland and to the unfettered control of Irish destinies, to be sovereign and indefeasible. The long usurpation of that right by a foreign people and government has not extinguished the right, nor can it ever be extinguished except by the destruction of the Irish people. In every generation, the Irish people have asserted their right to national freedom and to sovereignty. 6 times during the past 300 years, they have asserted it in arms, standing on that fundamental right and again asserting it in arms in the face of the world. We hereby proclaim the Irish Republic as a sovereign, independent state, and we pledge our lives and the lives of our comrades in arms to the cause of its freedom, of its welfare, of its exaltation among the nations. The Irish Republic is entitled to and hereby claims the allegiance of every Irishman and Irish woman. The Republic guarantees religious and civil liberties, equal rights and equal opportunities to all its citizens, and declares its resolve to pursue the happiness and prosperity of the whole nation and of all its parts, cherishing all the children of the nation equally, and oblivious of the differences carefully fostered by the alien government which have divided the minority from the majority in the past. Until our arms have brought the opportune moment for the establishment of a permanent national government, representative of the whole people of Ireland and elected by the suffrages of her men and women, the provisional government hereby constituted will administer the civil and military affairs of the Republic in trust for her people. We place the cause of the Irish Republic under the protection of the Most High God, whose blessing we invoke upon our arms, and we pray that no one who serves that cause will dishonour it by cowardice, inhumanity or rapine. In this supreme hour, the Irish nation must, by its valour and discipline, and by the readiness of its children to sacrifice themselves for the common good, prove itself worthy of the august destiny from which, to which it is called. Signed on behalf of the Provisional Government, Thomas J. Clark, Sean McDermott, P.H. Pearce, Padraig Pearce, James Connolly, Thomas MacDonagh, Eamon Cant, and Joseph Plunkett.
Just the first page, Harry, and just Article 10.
I will read the Article 1 of the Sovereign Republic of Ireland's Constitution. To thee, the most holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, we the people of Ireland dedicate our Constitution and beg the guidance of the Holy Spirit that it may be in consonance with thy divine will and contribute to thy greater glory. Amen. This Constitution shall be the Constitution of the Republic of Ireland, proclaimed in arms on Easter Monday, April 24th, 1916, and established by the will of the people of Ireland on January 21st, 1919. Article 1. The sovereignty of the nation is inalienable. It is therefore not within the competence of any generation of the people to surrender that sovereignty, which each generation holds in trust for the nation. The question of surrender of national independence may not be subject to an electorate. Subject to that fundamental principle, it is hereby declared that all authority in Ireland, legislative, executive and judicial, and all powers of government that derive solely under God, from the people of Ireland. These powers are inherent in the people alone, by virtue of their sovereignty. They must be exercised in accordance with the principles of liberty, equality and justice for all. Any legislation not in accordance with these principles are hereby declared to be null and void. And Article 10 is so relevant today in relation to people being evicted from their homes. You can't be evicted from your dollar in the Free State. And Article 10 reads, the land of Ireland belongs to all of the citizens of Ireland and to them alone.
And then Harry.
Mr. People, I've been to the Hearn, Kildare, Augustine, Shoharsalia. It's not just that we're proud today as Irish people to be here on the 99th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, but also for the example we gave to the world that the dignity of man, and of course means the human race, women and men, would be uplifted and a far better world would be created. I do believe that what happened in 1919 following on 1916 and with the principles of the United Irish Men before them, that Ireland has a unique position in the world that unfortunately was let slip, but at this ceremony every year, to which great credit must go to this noble gentleman here, Billy Maguire, who was kept at our
It's the IRB and the Fenian
Yes,
Brotherhood.
Nonetheless, you in the person representing the IRB and all the generations before. I'm not here to give a speech, but I do believe that this is the most important occasion every year, and that from it may respring a regeneration of Ireland and our influence in the world to make a better world for every single citizen on the face of this planet. We can only do our humble best. And before I go into it, I wish to thank each and every one of you here who sent me good wishes to get well when I was bordering between the worlds, and Mila Mohammed. Declaration of Independence, First All Ireland, Dáil Éireann, January the 21st, 1919. Whereas the Irish people is by right a free people, and whereas for 700 years the Irish people has never ceased to repudiate and has repeatedly protested in arms against foreign usurpation, and whereas English rule in this country is and always has been based upon force and fraud and maintained by military occupation against the declared will of the people. And whereas the Irish people was proclaimed in Dublin on Easter Monday 1916 by the Irish Republican Army, acting on behalf of the Irish people, and whereas the Irish people is resolved to secure and maintain its complete independence in order to promote the common weal, to re-establish justice, to provide for future defence, to ensure peace at home and goodwill with all nations, and to constitute a national policy based upon the people's will with equal right and equal opportunity for every citizen. And whereas the threshold of a new era in history, the Irish electorate has in the general election of December of 1918 seized the first occasion to declare by an overwhelming majority its firm allegiance to the Irish Republic. Now therefore, we, the elected representatives of the ancient Irish people in National Parliament assembled here, do in the name of the Irish nation ratify the establishment of the Irish Republic, and we pledge ourselves and our people to make this declaration effective by every means at our command. We ordain that the elected representatives of the Irish people alone have power to make laws binding on the people of Ireland, and that the Irish Parliament is the only Parliament to which that people will give its allegiance. We solemnly declare foreign government in Ireland to be an invasion of our national rights, which we will never tolerate. And we demand the evacuation of our country by the English garrison. We claim for our national independence the recognition and support of every free nation in the world. And we proclaim that independence to be a condition precedent to international peace hereafter. In the name of the Irish people, we humbly commit our destiny to Almighty God, who gave our fathers the courage and determination to persevere through long centuries of ruthless tyranny and strong in the justice of the cause which they have handed down to us. We ask His divine blessing on this, the last stage of the struggle we have pledged ourselves to carry through to freedom.
Richard. Thank you. Very nice.
I'm lucky to be here.
You're up next.
Called Gael. It's a great honour to be here in the presence of William James Maguire, not only the President of the IRB, the President of the Republic, the true President of the Republic. The leprechaun in the park is not the President of anything. He's a representative of the Crown, the Viceregal Lodge. So this is our true President. And it's important that we all know and understand that. That's number one. Number two, before I proceed with this, I would like to send my commiserations to Tom McGrath, our Vice President, who cannot be here due to illness today. Tom wouldn't miss this for the world. His illness has prevented him, so please send your good wishes to Tom McGrath.
We do.
Thank you very much for that. Now, this was a message to the free nations of the world from the first Dáil that was held there in the round room. To the nations of the world, greetings. The nation of Ireland, having proclaimed her national independence, calls through her elected representatives in Parliament, assembled in the Irish capital on January the 21st, 1919, calling upon every free nation to support the Irish Republic by recognising Ireland's national status and her right to its vindication at the Peace Congress. At the Peace Congress, it says there. Nationally, the race, the language, the customs and the traditions of Ireland are radically distinct from the English and from England. Ireland is one of the most ancient nations in Europe, and she has preserved her national integrity vigorously and intact through 7 centuries of foreign oppression. She has never relinquished her national rights. And through the long era of British usurpation, she has in every generation defiantly proclaimed her inalienable rights to the nationhood, down to the last glorious resort of arms in 1916. Internationally, Ireland is the gateway to the Atlantic. Ireland is the last outpost of Europe towards the west. Ireland is the point upon which the great trade routes between east and west converge. Her independence is determined by the freedom of the seas. Her great harbours must be open to all nations, instead of being a monopoly of England. Today those harbours are empty and idle solely because English policy is determined to retain Ireland as a barren bulwark of English aggrandisement. And the unique geographical position of this island, far from being a benefit and safeguard to Europe and America, is subject to the purposes of England's policy of world domination. Ireland today reasserts her historic nationhood, most confidently before the new world emerging from the war, because she believes in freedom and justice as the fundamental principles of international law, because she believes in the frank cooperation between the people for equal rights against the vested privileges of the ancient tyranny, because the permanent peace in Europe can only be secured by perpetuating military domination for the profit. There's something wrong with that. For the profit of the empire, but only by establishing the control of government in every land upon the basis of free will of a free people, and the existing state of war between Ireland and England can never be ended until Ireland is definitely evacuated by the armed forces of England. For those among the other reasons, Ireland resolutely and irrevocably determined at the dawn of the promised era of self-determination and liberty that she will not suffer foreign domination any longer, calls upon every free nation to uphold her national claim to complete independence as an Irish republic against the arrogant pretensions of England, founded on fraud and sustained only by the overwhelming military occupation. And she demands to confront publicly England at the Congress of Nations in order that the civilized world, having judged between England's wrongs and Ireland's rights, may guarantee Ireland its permanent support for the maintenance of our national independence. And that was signed on behalf of Dáil Éireann on the 21st of January 1990, Free Nations of the World. Thank you very much.
I'm going to turn the sovereign seal, but that's very important what Thomas just said. You know, and you don't hear anything about Brexit. You don't hear that we have our sovereign 32 county government, and it's the only legal, valid and bona fide government that can sit in the European Parliament. And as I explained earlier, Britain doesn't have a sovereign government. And why is that not being addressed today? Why aren't politicians coming out and saying that only that sovereign government of the 21st of January? And why don't they recognise that, what we have? I mean, we have all the European countries for the first time in our history behind us and are supporting us 100%. And when they find out that all we have is a provisional government under the Crown, how do you think those people are going to feel when they're betrayed? We don't have to have it. You need to tell the truth and be upfront with the Irish people and with the European people. They're our friends, and they are very important to us. And as I said, we have the largest territory in Europe. We go United States of America and Canada are our neighbours. And all that territory We do not want the European Union. They cannot give any part of our sovereignty that was imposed on the 6th of December 1921 by the British government and King George V as a British apartheid system for the 26 and 6 counties of Ireland as an Orange-Free state and a provisional government. How can they give that? How can they give that away? They can't. It'll destroy Europe, and they should be told it, and everybody should stand up and say, that's ours, that's for your children and your grandchildren. And that's what we're doing here today, is keeping that dream alive. (1919-2018), the Irish Republican Brotherhood, commemorating the 21st of the 1st, 2018, the 99th anniversary of the Sovereign Republic of Éire, the 99th anniversary of the Sovereign Dáil Éireann government, the 99th anniversary of the Sovereign Dáil Éireann Republican courts, 4 courts, the 99th anniversary of the War of Independence, Anno Domini 2018. I, William James Maguire, elevated and turned from this centre, the Mansion House, Dublin, the sovereign seal of Dáil Éireann, AD 12 strings, a Celtic Christian symbol and ethos, from the rising sun to the setting sun, from north to south and from east to west, and from wrong to right, and from evil to good, and from pagan to Christian to sovereign, as in the 1916 proclamation. And I claim sovereignty over all the elements, earth, air, fire, and water, and all therein and thereof, on behalf of the sovereign citizens and the Sovereign Republic of Éire, man's intellect and reason and sovereignty. Signed and sealed on this day, the 21st of January 2018, under the sovereign seal of the Sovereign Republic of Éire, William James Maguire, President of the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood, President of the Sovereign Republic of Éire. And anybody wants to see, that's the sovereign seal of Dáil Éireann that was here on the 21st of January. And on the tricolour, and it's the only symbol that's allowed on the tricolour, is the Sovereign Republic of Éire. That's the difference between the two. And that's all our territory. You can see the largest territory. That's it. That's the official territory. And I, William James Maguire, claim sovereignty over all our territory, all the territory of the Sovereign Republic of Éire, rivers, lakes, seas, fishing rights, mineral rights, licenses, and all assets of the state on behalf of the sovereign citizens of the Sovereign Republic of Éire and the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood. Signed and sealed on this day, the 21st of January 2018, 21st of 1st, 2018. William James Maguire, President of the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood, President of the Sovereign Republic of Éire, President of the Sovereign Republic of Éire, Sovereign Dáil Éireann Government. And there it is again. There's the sovereign seal of Dáil Éireann, and that's on the tricolour. From the rising sun to the setting, from north to south, and from east to west, from wrong to right, from pagan to Christian to sovereign, as in the 1916 proclamation. And that's a year on, and that is where the circle of what you've been told, all that, where all that comes from, is from the harp, the covenant of the harp, the covenant between God and man with all the information, knowledge for his planet Earth and our civilization. I'm afraid after 99 years it's a bit battered, but still we're all here to witness it. That's the golden string. That's the first string, is your measuring tape, your plumb line, divided in two. Those are the pyramids of Egypt. And I showed you, which is that's the sovereign seal, that's the harp sign. That is the sun ship that grows all our biomass, and that's the moon ship that controls all the cycles of life and all the tides. And you put the two together, it's your intellect and reason, how you are, has God given you the God-given right to understand his planet Earth and our civilization. We have to develop our own civilization in accordance with those, all that's on that.
Lord Mayor wants to kind of wrap it up and say something.
Wrap it up.
As soon as you can.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, Billy. How are
How are
you?
you? Can you keep them?
How are you?
How are you? How are you?
Ah, sure.
How are you? How are you? Sure, how are you?
Sorry.
You're all right? You're ready? How are you? Steve?
Today is our launching a self-guided walking tour. It starts with Vaughan's Hotel, telling the story of Scotland.
How are you? You're welcome.
There's no one outside the top of the wrong place.
Oh, he let us in.
Billy, how are you?
Good, thank you. Good job. Paddy, how are you? How are you? How are you? How are you?
Firstly, the cabinet was sat in the dining room, and it was known as the cabinet room, and then following.
Thank you.
I want to say a lot of has gone into this, and when we're finished here shortly, and after the Lord Mayor shows us around, we'd ask everyone to, as briskly as possible, to meet us in the steps, and we're going to tour in rivers from the Mansion House today down to Vaughan's Hotel. It was all of everyone came along. Thanks very much.
We have to get out of here now. We have to wrap up and
As I said, because the crowd is so large, we won't be able to go around the whole house, but I can show you the surround room. Now,
That's the Sovereign Seal.
easiest way to do this is
That's the harm.
go out the door at the end there.
It's Anno Domini
in
28.
the round room. Again, because the crowd is so
That's
big,
the
I won't be able
Covenant.
to talk to you about the photograph. When you go out the door there, there's a photograph which takes up the whole wall, and that's a meeting of the second Dáil Éireann in 1921, the summer of 1921, in the round room. At the time, they were preparing for negotiations, and you'll see some familiar faces if you examine it closely. De Valera, Arthur Griffith, Michael Collins, Noel McNeil, Countess Markovich.
well done.
You can all see all of them, and there's quite a large crowd there. You'll also see the skylights, which when you initially look at them, they look like electric lights. They're actually skylights in the ceiling of the round room, which have now been filled in. So if you can see that photograph on the way in, as I say, too many people for me to stand with you there. But we then
There for John, hold on. Is there anything else for John? He has the rest, let's say. Give him those.
Will I give them them or you?
Yeah, no, you give them to him. Wait a minute, Harry. We need to put this in as well. Good turnout.
Good turnout indeed, and so